At just 19, she was discovered on a studio tour and became an overnight star. By 32, she was gone forever. Pamela Tiffin's rise and fall is Hollywood's darkest secret, a story of betrayal, stolen photos, and the real reason she turned down Warren Beatty. She could have been bigger than Ann-Margret, but a single Playboy issue changed everything. 60 years later, the truth is finally coming out about why one of Hollywood's brightest stars suddenly vanished and who wanted her gone. Pamela Tiffin was born on October 13, 1942, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Her father, Stanley Wanso, was an architect with Polish roots. Her mother, Grace Irene Tiffin Wanso, came from a British background. This unique mix gave Pamela a striking beauty that later made her unforgettable. Her childhood in Oklahoma was simple until her family moved to Chicago when she was still young. That move would change everything. Growing up in Chicago, Pamela was a bright and curious student. She joined the Latin Club and the Debate Club, always eager to learn new things. But what truly set her apart was her looks. Even at 13, she had an elegant presence that made people take notice. She started modeling at that young age, not just for fun, but to save money for college. She had no idea this small step would lead her to something far bigger. As a teenager living in Oak Lawn, Illinois, Pamela's modeling career began to take off. Photographers saw something special in her. Her features were delicate yet powerful, perfect for the camera. By the time she was in high school, she was already making a name for herself. Then, at just 18 years old, she reached a milestone that most models could only dream of. She appeared on the cover of Vogue magazine. That Vogue cover changed everything. It wasn't just a pretty picture, it was proof that she belonged among the top fashion models of New York City. Offers started pouring in. By the late 1950s and early 1960s, she was making up to $1,500 per week. That was a fortune for a young model at the time. She wasn't just in magazines. She also became the face of major advertising campaigns. One of the most famous was a lingerie ad shot by photographer Bert Stern for the New York Times Magazine. Her ability to shine in both high fashion and commercial work made her one of the most sought-after models of her era. With so much success, Pamela and her mother moved to New York City. She enrolled at Hunter College, hoping to balance school with her growing modeling career. But modeling demanded more and more of her time. Soon, she had to make a choice. The opportunities were too big to ignore, so she left college to focus on modeling full-time. Though she never finished school, her career allowed her to travel the world and learn in ways she never expected. Then, in 1960, everything changed again. During a Thanksgiving trip to Los Angeles with her mother, Pamela decided to visit some friends. They took a tour of the Paramount Pictures lot, just for fun. But that casual visit turned into a life-changing moment. Legendary producer Hal B. Wallace spotted her. Something about her caught his eye. He invited her for a screen test, convinced that she had the potential to be a star. Pamela had never planned to be an actress, but when she stepped in front of the camera, everything clicked. Wallace was impressed. He cast her in Summer and Smoke, 1961, a film based on a Tennessee Williams play. This was a big-budget production, costing $4 million, which would be about $42 million today. Directed by Peter Glenville, the film starred Geraldine Page and Lawrence Harvey. Tiffin played Nellie Ewell, a lively young woman who stood in contrast to the film's reserved protagonist, Alma Weinmiller. The role was originally meant for Dolores Hart, but after Tiffin's screen test, producer Hal B. Wallace saw something special in her and gave her the part. She was a newcomer surrounded by experienced actors, yet she held her own. Geraldine Page won a Golden Globe for her role, and Tiffin's performance didn't go unnoticed either. She earned a Golden Globe nomination for Most Promising Female Newcomer in 1962, joining a list of rising stars that included Jane Fonda and Ann-Margret. Critics praised her natural presence and ability to bring energy to the screen. Hollywood had found someone with a perfect mix of talent and beauty. Her next film came quickly. Billy Wilder cast her in 1, 2, 3, 1961, a fast-paced Cold War satire starring James Cagney. She played Scarlett Hazeltine, a Southern teenager who causes chaos when she secretly marries a communist activist in East Berlin. The movie was filmed on location just before the Berlin Wall was built, adding an unexpected real-world backdrop to its political humor. Tiffin's comedic timing was sharp, and her chemistry with Cagney made her performance stand out. Wilder, known for discovering talents like Marilyn Monroe and Audrey Hepburn, called her the biggest find since Audrey Hepburn. That was high praise from a director who had worked with some of Hollywood's greatest actresses. The industry took notice again. In 1962, she received a Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actress, making her one of the few stars to earn 2 nominations in her first year in Hollywood. Her early success led to a contract with 20th Century Fox. One of her first projects under the deal was State Fair, 1962, a musical remake of the 1945 film. She played Margie Frake, a young woman experiencing love and heartbreak at the Texas State Fair. The film had music by Rodgers and Hammerstein and starred Bobby Darin and Ann-Margret, 2 rising stars of the era. The production faced challenges. Producer Buddy Adler and lyricist Oscar Hammerstein II passed away before the film was completed. Delays and setbacks made things difficult, and when State Fair finally hit theaters, it struggled at the box office. It earned $3.5 million against a $4.5 million budget. Critics were mixed, but Tiffin's performance was one of the highlights. She proved she could handle musicals just as well as comedy and drama. By the mid-1960s, she was one of Hollywood's most admired young actresses. With her beauty and charm, she was often compared to Audrey Hepburn. But with that admiration came a problem. She started getting cast in similar roles. Fun, light-hearted characters who didn't have much depth. Films like The Pleasure Seekers, 1964, and For Those Who Think Young, 1964, made good use of her comedic timing, but they didn't give her the chance to explore more complex characters. Tiffin wanted more. In interviews, she talked about her frustration with being typecast. She had already shown she could do serious roles, but Hollywood kept offering her the same kind of parts. Still, audiences loved her. She had an effortless screen presence, and even in the most light-hearted roles, she brought something special. Pamela Tiffin's career hit its peak in the mid-1960s. She became a favorite among young audiences, starring in films that captured the energy and excitement of the era. In 1964, she appeared in For Those Who Think Young and The Lively Set, both opposite James Darren. These films were made for teenagers, packed with music, romance, and fast cars. In For Those Who Think Young, she played Sandy Palmer, a college student who catches the attention of a wealthy playboy. The film leaned into pop culture trends and even used Pepsi-Cola's slogan as its title. It had a modest budget, but still managed to earn $4 million. The cast included Ellen Burstyn and Nancy Sinatra, but Pamela's charm made her stand out. That same year, she starred in The Lively Set, playing Edie Manning, the sister of an engineering student working on a turbine-powered race car. The film featured real-life automotive technology, including Chrysler's Ghia turbine car, and even had cameos from racing legends like Mickey Thompson. Pamela disliked the promotional stunts tied to the movie, especially being asked to pose in swimsuits, but her role gave the film a romantic touch. These 2 films helped solidify her image as a leading actress for youth-oriented movies. A year earlier, in 1963, she had showcased her comedic talent in Come Fly With Me. The film followed 3 airline stewardesses as they traveled the world in search of love and adventure. Pamela played Carol Brewster, a young stewardess who falls for an Austrian baron during a flight. The movie was shot in glamorous locations like Paris, Vienna, and New York City, adding a sense of luxury to the light-hearted story. It took 12 weeks to film, requiring careful planning to capture the sleek, modern look of air travel in the 1960s. Critics praised Pamela's comedic timing, and while the movie wasn't a major box office hit, it strengthened her reputation as a skilled comedic actress. By the mid-1960s, she was taking on more varied roles. In The Hallelujah Trail, 1965, a satirical western, she played Louise Gearhart, the daughter of a military officer played by Burt Lancaster. The film was nearly 3 hours long and filled with large-scale action scenes and slapstick humor. Pamela's youthful energy balanced Lancaster's strong presence, adding a fresh dynamic to the story. In 1966, she moved into a darker role in Harp, starring Paul Newman. The film, based on Ross MacDonald's novel The Moving Target, was a mystery thriller filled with tension and intrigue. Pamela played Miranda Sampson, the seductive stepdaughter of Lauren Bacall's character. Her performance added complexity to the story, proving she could take on more serious roles beyond comedies and romance films. Despite her growing filmography, critics often dismissed her as an actress who starred in light-hearted escapist films. Even when she acted alongside Hollywood icons like Burt Lancaster and Paul Newman, she struggled to break free from the perception that she was mainly suited for comedic or romantic roles. Biographer Tom Lisanti noted that Hollywood didn't fully know how to use Pamela's mix of beauty and comedic skill. She was frequently cast in youthful, glamorous roles rather than being given deeper, more dramatic characters. She also turned down key opportunities that might have changed her career. Pamela Tiffin had everything: beauty, charm, and talent. But a few career decisions and unexpected scandals kept her from reaching the heights of Ann-Margret and Raquel Welch. Some of her biggest regrets came from turning down roles that could have changed everything. In 1961, producer Hal B. Wallace offered her the lead female role in Blue Hawaii. She would have played Mel Duvall, Elvis Presley's love interest. It was a massive opportunity. Presley's films were guaranteed box office hits, and Blue Hawaii ended up grossing $4.3 million. But Pamela turned it down. She had listened to advice from friends like Dolores Hart and director Peter Glenville, who warned her that Presley's musicals were too predictable and wouldn't do much for her career. So she said no, and the role went to Joan Blackman. 2 years later, Wallace gave her another chance. He wanted her to star in Fun in Acapulco, opposite Elvis, in 1963. Again, she declined. The role went to Ursula Andress, who used it as a stepping stone in Hollywood. Pamela later admitted she regretted both decisions. After meeting Elvis in person, she found him adorable and an amazing gentleman. She realized she had made a mistake by letting others influence her choices. Presley's films may not have been critically acclaimed, but they gave actresses huge exposure. If she had accepted, her career might have taken a completely different turn. What made these decisions even stranger was the fact that Pamela had no problem starring in light-hearted teen films with lesser-known actors like Pat Boone and James Darren. She had no issue taking on those roles, but somehow felt Presley's films weren't right for her. Critics later pointed to these choices as reasons why she never became as big as Ann-Margret. But her biggest missed opportunity came in 1967. She was considered for the lead role of Bonnie Parker in Bonnie and Clyde. The film became a cultural phenomenon, earning 10 Academy Award nominations. It turned Faye Dunaway into a superstar and solidified Warren Beatty's status as a Hollywood powerhouse. Pamela could have had that role, but she turned it down. Her reason? Warren Beatty. His reputation as a womanizer made her uncomfortable. He was not just the lead actor, he was also producing the film. That made her nervous about potential conflicts on set. At the time, industry gossip about Beatty's many romantic relationships was everywhere. Pamela didn't want to be part of that world, so she walked away. The decision cost her. The film was a turning point for Hollywood, pushing boundaries with its violence and bold storytelling. If she had taken the role, it could have redefined her career. Instead, it went to Faye Dunaway, who became one of the biggest stars of the era. Pamela's choice reinforced her image as someone who played it safe. While other actresses took risks, she stayed in her comfort zone. Then, in 1969, a scandal changed everything. Playboy published a pictorial titled "A Toast to Tiffin" in the February issue. The topless photos had been taken years earlier as part of a private experiment when she was considering a role in The Libertine, 1968. The film required nudity, so she had taken test shots to see if she was comfortable with it. She later decided against the role and trusted a friend to keep the photos private. That friend betrayed her and sold them to Playboy without her permission. The photos weren't explicit. Flowers and fabrics were carefully placed to avoid full nudity, but the damage was done. Pamela had always maintained a wholesome image. The sudden appearance of these photos shocked her fans and hurt her reputation. Lawyers advised her to sue, but she refused. She feared legal action would only make the scandal worse. Meanwhile, other actresses were embracing their sex appeal in ways that worked to their advantage. Raquel Welch and Ann-Margret carefully controlled their public images, taking on bold but calculated roles that made them stars. Pamela never managed to do the same. By the late 1960s, her career was struggling. Turning down Bonnie and Clyde and two major Elvis films had cost her momentum. Actresses like Ann-Margret took on daring roles, like Carnal Knowledge in 1971, proving they could handle serious material. Raquel Welch became a cultural icon with 1 Million Years BC in 1966. Pamela, on the other hand, remained remained tied to light-hearted films aimed at younger audiences. In 1967, Pamela Tiffin made a bold move. She left Hollywood and went to Italy, looking for more than the same light-hearted roles she had been given for years. She had spent much of her career playing charming but shallow characters in comedies aimed at young audiences. Now she wanted something different. She wanted to push herself as an actress and figure out what she truly wanted. She said so in an interview, making it clear that this was not just about movies. It was about changing her life. At the time, many American actresses were drawn to European cinema. Hollywood had strict rules about the kinds of roles women could play. But in Italy, filmmakers took more risks. The country's film industry was thriving, known for its bold storytelling and sharp humor. For Pamela, it was the perfect place to start fresh. Her first major project in Italy was The Almost Perfect Crime in 1966, but it was Torture Me But Kill Me With Kisses in 1968 that turned her into a star. Directed by Dino Risi, the film was a satirical comedy that made fun of the overly dramatic romance stories popular in Italian photonovels. Pamela played Marisa Di Giovanni, a woman caught in a love triangle filled with fake suicide attempts and ridiculous murder plots. The movie was a massive hit. Audiences loved its mix of humor and absurdity. Pamela proved she could handle both comedy and emotion with ease. In 1969, she starred opposite Vittorio Gassman in The Archangel, another satirical film, this time focused on political intrigue and espionage. Gassman was one of Italy's most respected actors, and working with him gave Pamela a chance to show she was more than just a pretty face. She adapted quickly to the European style of filmmaking, something Gassman himself praised. Hollywood might not have been paying attention anymore, but in Italy, she was gaining serious respect. Her work in Italy led her to collaborate with Franco Nero, one of the country's biggest stars. In 1971, she starred with him in The Fifth Chord, a stylish thriller directed by Luigi Bazzoni. The film, based on the novel Black Day for Aries, featured Nero as an alcoholic journalist investigating a series of murders. Pamela played Lou Auer, his lover, adding both mystery and intrigue to the story. She admitted later that she had taken the role mainly for the money, but once filming started, she recognized its artistic value. The movie's cinematography, done by the legendary Vittorio Storaro, was visually stunning. Some of its scenes even reminded Pamela of her early days as a model, something she noticed while on set. 2 years later, in 1973, she reunited with Nero for Deaf Smith and Johnny Ears, a spaghetti western that also starred Anthony Quinn. She played Susie Q, a prostitute caught up in a dangerous world of political conspiracies. Nero played Johnny Ears, the partner of Quinn's character, a deaf-mute scout working for the Mexican government. The film had its share of intense scenes, and Pamela later said she appreciated how Nero made sure she was treated with respect on set. By this time, her focus on European films had cost her visibility in Hollywood. She was no longer a major name in America, but in Italy, she had built a career that was both exciting and unpredictable. She had taken risks, challenged herself, and stepped away from the safe path. She had left behind the Hollywood system and, for a time, found something much more rewarding. Pamela Tiffin's love life had two very different chapters. Her first marriage was to Clay Felker, a journalist who would later co-found New York Magazine. They married on October 6, 1962, when Pamela was 20 years old and at the peak of her Hollywood career. Felker, 12 years older, was already making a name for himself in the publishing world. At first, they seemed like a perfect match. Pamela was starring in films like State Fair and 1, 2, 3, while Felker was shaping the future of magazine journalism. Their careers kept them busy, and for a while, they made it work. But Felker's dedication to his magazine empire and Pamela's constant travel for film shoots created distance between them. By the mid-1960s, their marriage was struggling. In 1967, Pamela left Hollywood for Italy, drawn to the European film industry and eager for a fresh start. That decision put even more strain on their relationship. 2 years later, in 1969, their divorce was finalized. Despite the split, both continued to succeed. Felker went on to revolutionize modern journalism, turning New York Magazine into a powerhouse. Pamela found new opportunities in Italian cinema, where she reinvented herself outside the pressures of Hollywood. Their marriage had been glamorous, but ambition had pulled them apart. In 1974, Pamela's life took a completely different turn when she married Edmondo Danone, the son of Italian film producer Marcello Danone. This time, she chose a quieter path. Shortly after their wedding, she retired from acting at 32 years old, a decision that surprised many. Hollywood still wanted her, but she had other plans. Pamela and Edmondo built a life together away from the spotlight. They split their time between New York City and Italy, enjoying the best of both worlds. They had two daughters, Echo Angelica and Aurora Hiligo. Echo later followed her mother into the entertainment industry, while Aurora chose a private life. Unlike her first marriage, this one lasted. Pamela and Edmondo remained together for over 4 decades until her passing in 2020. Even though she stepped away from acting, Pamela stayed connected to the film world in small ways. In 2003, she appeared alongside Echo in the documentary Abel Ferrara. Not guilty, but that was a rare exception. She valued her privacy and preferred a life away from the cameras. Pamela Tiffin's acting career came to a quiet but decisive end with Kill Me, My Love, Amore Mio, Uccidimi, 1973. Directed by Vittorio Sindoni, the romantic drama starred Farley Granger alongside her. This would be her last film before she retired in 1974. By then, she had spent nearly 10 years working in European cinema, mainly in Italy, where she found the creative freedom that Hollywood never fully gave her. But even with more control over her roles, she felt something was missing. Her retirement came shortly after she married Edmondo Danone, the son of Italian producer Marcello Danone, known for La Cage aux Folles. Marriage played a part in her decision, but it wasn't the only reason. Pamela had grown tired of acting, especially the repetitive roles that no longer interested her. Hollywood had typecast her, and even in Italy, where she had more artistic freedom, she felt uninspired. At just 32 years old, she walked away from a career that had taken her from Hollywood starlet to European art house actress. Her final Italian films didn't have the same commercial success as her earlier Hollywood projects, but they showed her range. She had moved beyond the light-hearted comedies and romances that made her famous, stepping into darker, more serious roles that reflected the changing tone of European cinema in the 1970s. Fans and critics were shocked when she left the industry, believing she still had untapped potential. But for Pamela, the choice was clear. She wanted a different life. Before her full retirement, she made a brief return to American television with The Last of the Power Seekers, 1971. Directed by Alan Reisner, the political drama focused on corporate power struggles within a wealthy family. The film, originally part of ABC's The Survivors series, starred Ralph Bellamy, with Pamela in a supporting role. This was one of her last projects in the United States before she shifted entirely to European cinema. The dramatic tone and ensemble cast may have appealed to her, offering a change from the romantic and comedic roles she had been known for. Though her performance was well received, she had already decided to move away from acting. After this, she turned down further roles in Hollywood and television. By 1974, she had stepped away completely. Instead of chasing more film opportunities, she focused on family life and creative interests outside the public eye. She and Edmondo raised 2 daughters, Echo Angelica and Aurora Hiligo Danone. Motherhood became her priority, and she fully embraced it, choosing stability over the unpredictability of show business. Unlike many actresses who later sought comebacks, Pamela never did. She valued privacy and lived a quiet life between New York and Italy, far from Hollywood's attention. She refused many offers to return, whether for acting roles or interviews. Even when film historians and fans wanted to celebrate her work, she remained distant, content with the life she had chosen. Pamela Tiffin spent her final years in Manhattan with her husband Edmondo Danone. She had stepped away from Hollywood in 1974, choosing a quiet life focused on family. Her husband was the son of Italian producer Marcello Danone, best known for La Cage aux Folles. Their marriage lasted more than 40 years, a lasting partnership in a world where fame often pulls people apart. On December 2, 2020, Pamela passed away at the age of 78 from natural causes, while hospitalized in New York City. Her daughter Echo Danone confirmed the news, sharing that Pamela had lived a full and happy life surrounded by loved ones. Major publications publications like The Hollywood Reporter and The Wrap covered her passing, sparking new interest in her career. Fans looked back on her time in Hollywood, remembering not just her beauty and charm, but also her ability to walk away from the industry on her own terms. She is survived by her husband and their two daughters, Echo Angelica and Aurora Hilego Danan. Echo followed her mother's path into entertainment, working as an actress and music supervisor, while Aurora chose a private life outside the public eye. Pamela had once been a rising star, but in the years after she left Hollywood, she often spoke about how much she valued being a mother. Fans and colleagues never forgot her. Even decades after her last film, people still talked about her elegance, humor, and screen presence. Franco Nero, her co-star in Deaf Smith and Johnny Ears, 1973, described her as sexy, brimming with talent, pure sunshine. Those who had worked with her or watched her films remembered how effortlessly she combined grace and comedy. She had a gift for making light-hearted roles feel special, whether playing a flirtatious Southern belle in Billy Wilder's 1, 2, 3, 1961, or an innocent tourist in The Pleasure Seekers, 1964, she brought warmth and depth to every performance. Though she left the industry early, her legacy never faded. Her films continue to captivate audiences, proving that true talent stands the test of time.